We're now smack dab in the middle of DC attempting to build its new structured universe around its most important characters like Batman and Superman and Green Lantern, and I'm sure eventually Wonder Woman. And they're stumbling a little bit. I think things actually got off to a fairly good start with 2025's Superman, a movie that I really enjoyed, especially as a fan of the original 1978 Christopher Reeve film. So now we have Supergirl, a movie that was essentially introduced at the end of Superman when Kara shows up at the Fortress of Solitude to collect Crypto, her dog, and turns out she's kind of an a-hole and might have a problem with alcoholic substances and partying too much. So let's talk about her standalone film, Supergirl. Thank you so much for checking out the video. Before we get started, click on the subscribe button and the notification bell. That way you know whenever I post new content. You can also follow me on Instagram, Rumble, and X. I post all these videos the same time every Saturday morning at 12 p.m. Saturday afternoon, technically 12 p.m. Eastern. So let's talk about Supergirl, a movie that has a bit of an uphill battle. Its lead actress, Millie Alcock, seemed to not get the memo on saying dumb things before the release of your movie. Fortunately, it wasn't nearly as catastrophic as our friend Rachel Zegler when it came to Snow White, a movie that she completely destroyed just by talking a bunch of crap about the original film, a legendary movie in its own right. And so as a result, people have their questions and concerns and doubts about this movie coming into it. I know that people had somewhat of a mixed reaction to the last Superman film. As I mentioned, I did really like it. I think David Corenswet is a fantastic Superman. I think it's a James Gunn Superman movie. And if you expected anything less, you would be disappointed. So now this film, she's on her own. She still has this problem with substances. Instead of hanging out in Clark's world, in Metropolis, and on planet Earth, she likes to be near planets that have red suns because that allows her to not have her powers and just be kind of normal. And apparently for her, normal is drinking all day, every day, and then going onto her ship, hanging out with her dog, and passing out. That is her entire life until a young girl is going through this struggle because her parents are murdered and they're joined together, and the girl wants revenge on the guy that killed her parents and her brother. And Supergirl is like reluctant to take up the mantle and be Supergirl and help this young child kick ass and take revenge and all this stuff. So if that sounds like a typical generic plot of this movie, that's because it actually is. This movie cribs from all the other comic book movies that you have seen. And as a result, I would best describe this as like somewhere between a fair to like decent movie with a very, very, very good lead performance. The problem is all of the things that are holding that structure up, like the director and the music, tend to let it down. You're not going to do the Superman score in its entirety without John Williams. It's simply not going to happen. You can do the original theme, but you can't really add anything new to that theme itself or that particular music without John Williams. So Superman took that theme and kind of sprinkled it throughout the movie and was constantly using it, but it never felt like the full-throated version of that score. James Gunn is smart enough to know that you're not gonna top that score in its entirety, so you just kind of have to do the best with what you can and implement it in ways that fit your film. This movie doesn't do any of that. That theme does not exist here whatsoever, even when Superman is in the movie. Spoiler alert, he's in the movie a little bit. He's not by any stretch like a huge character, but he does play some pretty important roles. So like the overall narrative of what this universe is trying to do. So of course he's in it for a little bit. But Millie Alcock, I think, is a great Supergirl. I think her performance is kind of right on for what they were trying to do with this character. She's essentially the complete opposite of Clark. She's like this ruthless pragmatist and a bit of a fatalist who sees the world for the way it really is, whereas Clark is like this just undying optimist who always sees the best in people. And I think that's an interesting way of doing this. I think it's unique, and it really like helps these characters play off on one another. And I am excited to see what it does in future films, because we are getting the Superman sequel next year, Man of Tomorrow. I am excited about that. But some of the stuff that just surrounds her in this kind of sucks. I think the overall story is just trite. The girl who plays the like protege that Kara is ultimately trying to help is kind of just a boring character. The actress just isn't very good. And it's just this story that's so contrived and has been done so many times before that it just doesn't grip you in the way it should. Kara spends so much of this movie not wanting to be Supergirl and kind of being dragged along into this big story by this young kid. And then you have a villain that is not all that interesting. He's got the facial piercings. It's a very like Guardians of the Galaxy, James Gunn type villain. Now, Gunn did not direct this movie. Craig Gillespie did. But it has a lot of those James Gunn kind of trappings. And there's parts of this movie that are like really, really good and then become extremely frustrating. There's this big fight sequence at the end that's actually kind of awesome. And the music is finally like coming into its own. And then for what can be described as no reason whatsoever, they decide to interject a slow cover with a female singer of The Middle by Jimmy Eat World. Why? You had that scene and it was going so well, and then you decided to do the modern audience thing, and put this stupid effing song in there, and it completely ruined the scene. It completely ruined what was a great moment. And Gunn can pull that off because he doesn't do it at like the most important part of the film. The scene at the end of Guardians where he does the dance off, the music in that is all original score, apart from the singing that Chris Pratt does. All of that like epic music with Quill reaching out for his mother and she's dying of cancer. All that stuff is incredibly emotional, and that's the film's score. They don't interject it with some slow down pop bullshit nonsense song just because that's what the modern audience wants. It completely wrecks what's otherwise essentially, I think, a fantastic scene. And the movie has these moments where these things are just thrown in there for whatever creativity's sake, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't work in those moments. And this is a movie that's like so close to getting it right. And yes, it has its weird cringe girl boss moments, but I don't think those derail the film. They're not crazy. They're not constant. So I wanted to like this movie. Actually, mostly did enjoy what I saw, but it just had these baffling head-scratching moments. Jason Momoa is awesome as Lobo. It is weird to see him in another DC movie carrying water for like another major character after he played Aquaman in the last version of whatever the DC thing is. But he is really good at this character. I'm excited to see what they do with him. It's just too bad the villains suck and the overall story is crap. Despite a great performance from its lead actress. So that's what I thought of Supergirl. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I will see you next Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern.